Fáilte, Cara. This is Lora O'Brien and you're listening to the Morrigan Academy podcast. And tonight we need to talk about Samhain. Not the plastic skeleton, pumpkin spice, Halloween version that's been sold back to us, but the real thing. The bone deep knowing that comes when October turns toward November here in Ireland, when the land itself seems to hold its breath. Because there's something about the Morrigan and Samhain that most people miss entirely. They think it's about death messengers, about the bunny quotes, the veil being thin, about spirits walking. And yeah, it is. But if that's all you see, you're missing what actually matters here. Let me tell you what happened to one of my students at the Morrigan Academy last year. She'd been working with the Morrigan for about 6 months. Nothing dramatic, just daily offerings, reading the source texts, doing the work. She wasn't in the intensive or anything. She just showed up and did the work and was building relationship with the Morrigan. So come October, she started having these dreams. Now, we're not talking Darby O'Gale here, right? Not this Hollywood Gothic nonsense that you'd expect. But she was having these dreams of sorting through old photographs, finding faces that she didn't recognise. Dreams of muddy fields and empty houses. Dreams of women washing clothes in a river that ran red. Now, she could have gone down the whole, prophetic visions road, right? Couldn't she? Many of us would be tempted down that road. But this particular student, she had actually been doing the real work. She recognised what she was seeing. These weren't mystical revelations. They weren't some soul journey that she had to take. They were memories that weren't hers. Ancestral memories. The very kind that bubble up when the boundaries are thinner, when the other world is closer at Samhain. When we look at the mythology, this is what the texts tell us if we're actually paying attention. In the Cáthmhacht, the second battle of Moitura, the Morrigan doesn't just participate in battle. She stands at the ford and she proclaims to her husband, to the king, the Dagda, what will be and what has been. She's the one who speaks the truth of sovereignty after the battle is won as well, who prophesies both bounty and doom. And honestly, here's what you need to understand. At Samhain, we are standing at the same ford. The Feast of Samhain in the Irish tradition isn't just about honouring the dead. It's about acknowledging that the boundaries between what was, what is, and what will be are arbitrary constructions. Time runs differently in the other world. The stories tell us this over and over again. The Morrigan has always known this. Time is non-linear. The Morrigan shapeshifts between forms, between roles, between worlds, because for her, these boundaries don't exist in the way that we pretend that they do. I had another student who asked me recently, why does everything get so intense with the Morrigan around Samhain? And I had to laugh, but I wasn't being unkind, right? I wasn't being cruel. But it's like asking why the river runs stronger in the rain. This is her time because this is when we can't pretend anymore. We can't pretend that we're separate from our ancestors, from our environment, from each other. We can't pretend that the past is gone. We can't pretend we don't know what's coming. This is where we have to wake up. You know what the L ones here in Ireland used to do? Now, they would have boxed your ears for calling them superstitious, but they would always leave the door unlatched, unlocked, on Samhain night. Samhain Eve, really. So the 31st of October, it wouldn't be open, mind you. You wouldn't be like leaving the doors open and going to bed. Just unlocked, unlatched. And I'd hear tell phrases like, for them that need to come home. And then they'd like change the subject. They'd never say who them might be, but they didn't need to. This is sovereignty work at its deepest level. The Morrigan at Samhain isn't asking you to play at being spooky. She's asking you to stand in the truth of what you are. Ancestor and descendant. Living and dying. Sovereign and subject to forces greater than yourself. All at once. No separation. Now, I had another student who spent last Samhain creating this really elaborate altar. You know the type. We've all done it, right? No shade. Black candles, crow feathers, the works, right? Sexy Mórrigan statue. And the Morrigan came to her in a dream and laughed at her, and showed her instead an image of old women, or a vision maybe, of old women sorting through vegetables, setting aside the good ones for winter storage, composting the rotten ones. This, the Morrigan told her, is Samhain work. This is your work right now. Because here's what the tradition actually tells us. Samhain is about survival. It's about looking at what you have, what you need, what must die so that something else can live through the winter. Our ancestors knew this. They had a cull, they had a slaughter at this time of year, and they burnt the bones in their bonfires, because they felt it in their bones when the last harvest came in, and they had to calculate, will this be enough? Will we make it through? Now, the Morrigan presides over these calculations because she's the one who understands the mathematics of survival. She is the bive, the battle crow, not just to feast on the dead, but to mark the necessary sacrifices. She appears as the washer at the ford, not just to predict death, but to acknowledge its role in the cycle. So this year, as Samhain approaches, I am watching my students navigate these same themes. There is one person in our intensive program who recognised that her constant people-pleasing was actually a kind of a famine response, inherited from ancestors who were colonised, who had to be useful or die. That's shadow work, and that's Samhain work. That's the Morrigan showing you what needs to be composted so something new can grow. So when we talk about the veil being thin at Samhain, I don't use that terminology, but the other world is closer. People are usually imagining something gauzy and mystical between us and the other world. But the Morrigan has always shown us that the real veil is the one we put up ourselves. The one that sits between who we are and who we pretend to be. Between what happened and what we wish had happened. Between the sovereignty we claim and the sovereignty we actually embody. So this Samhain, if you're working with the Morrigan, or if she's working with you, because let's be honest about who's usually driving this relationship, right? But understand that you're not being called to perform death. You're being called to acknowledge it, not to break the boundaries or thin the veil, but to recognise that there was no veil. There was never a veil there in the first place. So here's a little practice, right? Because I do like to give you a practice in our podcasts. Stand at your threshold on Samhain night, not with some elaborate ritual, but with simple acknowledgement. Say the names of your dead, if you know them. If you don't, say ancestors unknown. Pour out water or wine, or leave out food, not as an offering to beg favour, but as an act of hospitality to those who paved your way here. Set an extra plate at your table that evening for the Samhain supper. Acknowledge them in whatever way feels right and feels appropriate and feels hospitable to you. And then, and this is important, ask the Mórrigan not what she wants from you, but what needs to die so that you can live. Really live. Fully in your sovereignty. So if we get dreams of washing women, are they memories of preparing bodies? Were your ancestors a banfassa, a wise woman? Were they keeners at funerals? Did they have to take care of the dead during famine times? The Morrigan wouldn't give out this information just to traumatise people, right? If you're being shown prophecies or visions or anything like this, so past, present or future, it's so that you can understand things about yourself. So it might be to learn the lessons about why your family hoarded food, why there was always anxiety about waste, why abundance felt dangerous. Are those famine memories? Once you know, once you can acknowledge it, once you're aware of it, you can choose. And that's sovereignty. That's the gift of Samhain with the Mórrigan. So this Samhain, don't dress up as the Mórrigan. Don't dress up as death, right? When you're relating to death in this context, just sit with it. Don't play at being mystical. Be real. The Mórrigan doesn't need your performance. She needs your presence. She needs you to stop running from what you already know. She needs you to stand at the ford, like she does, and speak the truth of what was, what is, and what's coming. Even if your voice shakes, especially if your voice shakes. Stand and speak. And if you want to go deeper into understanding the Mórrigan, not the pop culture version, but the real presence that moves through Irish tradition and into our contemporary world, I've spent the last few years putting everything I know into a book. A practice manual, really. It's called The Mórrigan, Ireland's Goddess, and it's available wherever books are sold. Now, this isn't just another mythology retelling. This is actual source material, properly translated, creditable sources, but also culturally contextualised, with all of my receipts shown and the work for you laid out really plainly. Because you, my lovely listeners, my Morrigan Academy students, random person on the internet who comes across my voice, you deserve better than internet fluff when you're dealing with a goddess who can reshape your entire existence. Yes, it is that deep, right? It's that serious. So If the Morrigan is calling you, or if you're calling to her, you need solid ground to stand on. The book is everything I can possibly package up to give you that ground. It's what I wish I had 25 years ago when I was beginning my relationship with the Morrigan. So get yourself a copy and, more importantly, use it. Please don't buy it and just let it sit on your shelf, right? I mean, lovely, buy it, of course. I would love this to be a bestseller. Buy 10 copies and give them to your friends, right? But I really want you to use it as a resource, as I said, as a manual for practice, right? Because this isn't shelf decoration, beautiful as it is. The publishers did an excellent job with the cover, I have to say. But it is this working manual for sovereignty. The subtitle on it is Sovereign Secrets from an Irish View. And that is everything that I can give you packaged up together. So I hope you use it. I hope you get use out of it and find it useful. So until next time, remember, at Samhain, you are already standing at the ford. The only question is whether you'll acknowledge what is washing through it. Slán go fóill, and I will see you for season 2 next week.